Welcome to She Rebel Radio, the podcast for high-performing women leaders who want to unlearn conventional rules, leave prestigious careers, and launch businesses of significance. Each week, She Rebel Radio brings you insights and advice from women entrepreneurs who transformed their prestige prisons into daring entrepreneurial success stories. Now, here is your host, Lulu Nins.
Welcome to episode 54 of She Rebel Radio, Becoming Your Own Muse. Welcome, ladies. It is She Rebel Friday. It is time for part 3 of our She Rebel Radio summer series, supporting you in emerging from lockdown and powering forward in only the way that you can do. It was super early here. I'm always awake really early in the summer. It's getting quite ridiculous as to how early my inner She Rebel is awake right now. But I am going away on leave. I'm going to be having a little bit of time off the podcast. There is an episode next week as well. But I wanted to jump on and share this quite juicy episode with you today about how you can become your own muse, but importantly, why you need to become your own muse, and to start to explore a little bit as to what that would look like. As I said, this is part of the She Rebel Radio summer series. I hope you've listened to the previous episodes, but if you haven't, please don't worry. These episodes are great as a standalone episode, but tie into a 4-part series where we've explored the consequences of treading water and the solutions to doing so, because the pandemic has, caused so many of us to be in a situation where we are treading water. But that episode as well is incredible if you find yourself treading water in general, which we all do, and some of us do for longer periods of time. I know I have been there at a number of points in my life, and it's really important to identify that and to get yourself out of it sooner rather than later. We then looked at the external fix and corresponding empty destinations. Again, the pandemic is blowing up lots of problems and things that we have already. It's ripping the Band-Aid right off that kind of thing, and what we're seeing is a lot of pointing fingers, and that needs to be fixed, and that needs to happen, and that needs to change, without people actually going within and seeing what it is that they need to do with themselves, because we're all part of contributing to the collective of where we're living and what is happening in the world. So we really explored how that external fix can lead to empty destinations on a really personal level. And the flip side of that is moving into the internal work and finding a more fulfilled destination. And in order to do that, we need to become our own muse. And ladies in particular, we need to become our own muse. It's critical right now that we do that work. And I'm going to explain to you in this episode why. And I am inspired in this episode by the incredible artist Frida Kahlo, feminist icon, artist, and political activist, with her quote, "I am my own muse, the subject I know best and would like to know more." And that is my real intention today, to inspire you to become your own muse, the subject that you know best and would like to know more. And I'm going to explain to you why. I hope you're all familiar with Frida Kahlo. I was privileged enough to grow up surrounded by her work, and my mum is a huge fan. And that was way before Frida Kahlo was a household name. She's become a household name, which is amazing. And she had the huge exhibition in London. For those of you that don't know, she died in 1957, I think it was, or 1954. So she's no longer with us. But if you're not, really do check out her work. And she was branded as a surrealist painter. She didn't accept that. She said she painted her reality. She didn't paint dreams or anything of that nature. She painted from her experiences and her interpretation of self. She played with the masculine and feminine, which I'm also fascinated by, and I have a whole course on that subject. And she really had a gift for self-expression and her unique voice, and she was unapologetic within that voice. And the real key behind her being able to do that, and she was massively a woman ahead of her time, doing this stuff in the 20s and the 30s is, as I said, she became her own muse. The subject she knew best, the subject she painted about, the subject she wanted to know more. Another one of her quotes was she had 2 accidents in her life. One was with a tram and the other one was with Diego Rivera, which was her husband. And there were lots of difficulties within that relationship, although it was a very passionate one. And she also had an accident with a tram. I think she was leaving art college. She had a big pot of gold paint that she was holding that when the tram crashed went all over her. And I remember my mum telling me this story when I was younger, and my niece, who has the same birthday actually as Frida Kahlo and had a Frida Kahlo party only last month, which was incredible for me as well, because I was supposed to be in Chile in South America, not quite Mexico, but it definitely made up for that I wasn't able to fly out and have my trip to South America this year. But she had this tram accident, was covered in gold paint and quite severely injured, which, very severely injured, affected her for the rest of her life with various operations. She was unable to become a mother, and lots of her paintings are about that. And lots of them are very hard for some people to look at. And they're very graphic, and they were very graphic in that time for the experiences of women. And Madonna is a huge fan. She had one of the birthing pictures painted by Frida, up as you used to come through her front door, apparently, as a kind of shock factor, as a strong feminist, etc. So, she really painted her reality from her experiences and had this unique gift for self-expression and her unique voice and being unapologetic within it. But she couldn't have done that if she didn't become her own muse first. And as I said to you, my intention for today is to inspire you to become your own muse, because it really is the key to your greater self-expression, your unique voice and purpose in the world. But if you ignore yourself, if you ignore your experiences and you don't go deeper with that, you're going to struggle to find that. And I'm not saying that you need to become a painter or a creative artist in any way, shape or form, unless that is, what you're called to do. But I hope you can see that connection for Frida Kahlo and that she was way ahead of her time. Why was she way ahead of her time? Let's look at the meaning of the word muse. The meaning of the word muse is firstly the 9 goddesses who were the daughters of Zeus, widely known as the daughters of Zeus. And they were the kind of keepers of science and art and things like that. So we've got the goddesses. We've also got a muse being the source of creative inspiration for an artist. So they're the source of the inspiration. And historically, in the art world, it was women who tended to be the muse of men and the source of their creative inspiration. And, there's a book all about the muses of the, many great artists. Lee Miller, I'm also a huge fan of hers. She was very much known to be a muse of Man Ray, but she was an artist within her own right. And, as women, we were the muses of others rather than the muses of ourselves. And that is critical to look at and to understand. And in the book, which I highly recommend you read, Goddesses in Every Woman, because this connects with the muse and the goddess archetypes, and it really highlights the powerful archetypes in women's lives. And it's written by a psychotherapist, and she looks at and identifies, previously where psychology, where psychotherapy, has been very male focused. And we really are, as women, as a collective of women, as individual women, going back and becoming our own muses and exploring our identity and where it is that comes from, because a lot of that for many of us has been kind of wiped out, certainly wiped out of the Bible. There weren't very many female characters in books and things like that growing up, and we were so used to it that we didn't notice. But now this search for that identity, for becoming our own muse, is real. So if you're relating to that and you're feeling that search is real, and that book will massively support you with that. And the writer of that book, Jean Shinoda Bolen, she talks about Carl Jung. I'm a huge fan of his work in terms of shadow work, etc. You know, I studied sociology, psychology, all the ologies when I was at college and at university. So, you know, this is a long-term thing for me. But she talks about how Carl Jung did include women, but really included women in respect of how we served and related to men. So how we served and related to men. And that is critical to look at, because so much of our history and identity as women is wrapped up in how we serve and relate to men. And we see that in, you know, the archetype of the muses, how they relate to men, instead of how they relate to themselves and how we relate to ourselves. As a muse, we're the muse of others and not of ourselves. So what does it look like, and what does it look like for you on a personal level when you reframe that, when we change the perspective and ask a different question? Those questions being, how can we serve and relate to ourselves for ourselves? That's as women. And for you as an individual woman, how can you serve and relate to yourself for yourself? Because where is it that you're serving and relating to others for them? I know as so many women, you will resonate with that. Oh, how do I serve and relate to myself for myself? That's a new question for me. And it's a question I'd love for you to explore. Secondly, what would happen if we truly became our own source of creative inspiration? What would happen if you became your own source of creative inspiration? Using that word source, that inner guru, that inner goddess. Inspiration is to inspire, is to be in spirit. So you need to be in connection with your spirit in order to be your source of creative inspiration. And so much of, you know, modern society, etc., you know, we're really having an awakening to our source, to our spirit. But we've been so disconnected from that. So again, if you're feeling that call, that search for identity, history, and your identity as a woman, that struggle is real. It absolutely is real. And by doing this work, by asking these questions, by reading that book, The Goddess in Every Woman, by setting an intention to become your own muse, you set yourself on a real art of self-discovery. And I'm huge on self-discovery and the internal work, and I've been talking very much recently about how that internal work takes commitment, it takes community, it takes courage, it takes conversation. And I've recently started, you know, an accountability circle, following on from my self-study course, The 3 Keys to Self-Actualization. And we had the first meetup online this week. If you want to talk to me about that, please do reach out, because it's incredible, because we're having these kind of conversations about our identity and our experience as women and becoming, you know, our own muses. Because as I keep saying as well, the next 10 years is going to see the global expansion and evolution of women. Frida Kahlo and so many women before us were lighting the way for us. Being ahead of their time, creating the freedom that many of us have in the Western world now, but are still stuck with, you know, old stories, old patterns of being the muses of others instead of being the muse of ourselves, instead of serving and relating to ourselves, instead of us becoming our own source of creative inspiration and connecting with our inner source and our inner spirit. And as I said, it takes commitment, it takes courage, and it takes community. But to expand and evolve as women, we must explore self. We must become more of ourselves, and we must do the inner work to help ourselves get there, because that has how we create real change and impact in the world. And when you deepen your conscious awareness of yourself, that leads to a much more fulfilled destination. And I was listening to Deepak Chopra 21-day meditation I'm doing the 21-day meditation at the moment, but it was actually last Friday when the episode, The External Fix and Empty Destinations was released, and it was about finding fulfillment within. And he talked about within that 21-day meditation that when you deepen your conscious awareness, you create a more fulfilled destination. It was so on point with last week's episode and this week's episode. But when you have a constricted awareness, you have shallow desires, which leads to those empty destinations. And as women, our desires are so powerful, but we are so disconnected from them by being the muses of others, by serving and relating to others for others instead of ourselves and becoming our own muse. So when you deepen that conscious awareness and that self-inquiry of you, your desires become stronger, they become more meaningful, and that really is the route to those fulfilled destinations, which is where you make the change in impact. As I always say, every she rebel wants freedom for herself and freedom for everybody else. Every she rebel who gives herself permission to give herself freedom gives freedom to everybody else. But, you know, over the last 5 years, when I've been working with women trapped in these old people-pleasing patterns, being the muse of others, and it really is not serving you. So please make that commitment to doing the internal work. If you would like to start in terms of having my support and deepening my support of you with doing that work, as I said, it takes commitment, community, and courage. The perfect place to start is my 3 keys to self-actualization, which is supporting you to actualize your greater potential. And within that, what you're looking at is how to self-securitize, how to self-authorize, and how to self-express. As I've said, Frida Kahlo, in her genius, with her gift of self-expression and finding her unique voice, becoming her own muse was a route to her doing that. And this self-study course is so powerful. It's what I created right at the beginning of lockdown. Many women have been going through that, and we have created the accountability circle as a follow-on to support you within that journey as well. So I'm going to put that link in the comments. You can find it at lulumins.com/3 keys. That is the number 3 keys. I'm going to put that in the show notes rather than the comments, but I will put it on social media as well. And if I can help you in any other way, I know that I can. But if this episode is resonating with you, then please do always reach out to me via email, on any of my social media channels. We can have a conversation, do what feels good. But that is today's episode 54, Becoming Your Own Muse. I'm super chuffed with myself for recording this so early, and really excited to share with you as well next week, which is going to be a follow-on from this, is success as a feminine-based principle.
Thanks for listening to She Rebel Radio, the podcast for high-performing women leaders who want to unlearn conventional rules, leave prestigious careers, and launch businesses of significance. She Rebel Radio is executive produced and hosted by women's advocate and coach Lulu Mins. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode. You can find Lulu Mins on Facebook and LinkedIn at Lulu Mins, and on Instagram at LuluMins_biz. Until next week, keep rebelling against the rules and designing success your way.